Good evening, everyone. Call to order the St. Charles Planning Commission. Colleen Bisa, Zach Ewald.
Here.
Funk.
Here.
Gary Gruber.
Here.
John Fitzgerald. Dave Rosenberg. Dina Lawson. Rita Payleitner.
Here.
All right, Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty. Thank you. Presentation of the meeting minutes from November 18th. Is there a motion to approve?
We'll make a motion.
Second. Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item 5, the Shops of Pheasant Run. This is a concept plan submittal by SC Landman LLC, located at 4051 East Main Street. The purpose of the concept plan review is to allow an applicant to obtain informal input on a conceptual development prior to filing zoning applications and preparing detailed plans and drawings. The concept plan process also serves as a forum for citizens and neighboring property owners to ask questions and express their views of this potential development. The procedure tonight will be to start with comments from staff, followed by the applicant's presentation. After that, the Plan Commission will ask questions that they may have. Then members of the public, if they wish to speak, will have a chance to do so. And then finally, Plan Commission members will provide their final feedback. The Plan Commission does not take any action to approve or deny a project at this stage. After this meeting, the plan will be discussed at the Planning and Development Committee of City Council on Monday, December 8th. If the applicant decides to pursue this project, zoning applications will be filed and a public hearing will be held with notice provided to all property owners. I ask that anyone who wishes to speak, please be recognized and then stand at the lectern. Please state your name for the court reporter, spell your last name, and provide your address.
Thank you. SC Landman LLC has filed a concept plan proposing redevelopment of the remaining 33 acres at the Pheasant Run Resort property. 2 site plans have been submitted for consideration, and the ownership team is here tonight to present. And I will mention that this is concept level review, although the 2 site plans submitted do give quite a bit of high detailed review for each individual lot, but we're looking at this from a conceptual basis at this point.
Sure, thank you. All right, if the applicant would like to present.
Thank you. Good evening. For the record, my name is Katie Jenke Dale, Jahnke Dale, Dale, from the law firm of DLA Piper, which is located at 444 West Lake Street in Chicago. And along with my colleague, Peter McCaster, we represent the applicant in this matter. The applicant is present here tonight and is an affiliate of Equity. Their name is up there on the screen, which is also a Chicagoland-based developer. This screen shows the project team. Like staff mentioned, we have put a lot of thought and detail into this, even though it is a concept review plan. That this is our full kind of suite of consultants, many with local experience here in St. Charles. With that, I'm going to have I believe Spaceco come up and do a brief overview of the site plan. Then I'll come back up and talk about the relief that we would be looking for as part of the PUD. And then most importantly, we want to hear your questions and comments tonight. So thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Brennan McGovern, MCGOVERN, with Spaceco at 9575 West Higgins Road, Suite 700 in Rosemont, Illinois. We are the civil engineers on the project, so we would be going over some high-level site planning and engineering comments tonight. So the site plan is 12 lots for retail, at Main Street and Couts Road in St. Charles. Right now we're at 12 lots with 2 accesses to North Avenue, 1 access to recently constructed Pheasant Run Drive, and 1 access to Couts Road. The site is 34 acres with stormwater provided at the south side of the site. Approximately, we have water, sanitary, and storm sewer connections available to us. The site will follow the Kane County Stormwater Ordinance. The 2 connections to East Main Street will require an IDOT permit. And at this time, we're obviously at the preliminary and conceptual phases of design, but that's just kind of a high-level overview of the site plan.
Like staff mentioned as well, we have a second site plan that overall is very much similar to the one that was just presented. One has 12 lots, one has 15, which gets me to the zoning that we would be seeking were we to file the formal application, which would be a PUD. We're not looking to change the BR zoning, and all uses fit within the permitted or the allowed uses in the BR zoning. Just kind of given the overall size of this site, 34 acres approximately, the PUD would allow for us to get the comfort that is needed to do a significant infrastructure up front in order to prepare the site for development. And then there are a few preliminary deviations or allowances that we would be seeking or have identified already, one of which is to get preliminary approval for some drive-through uses. Again, that would be just to allow for us to go out to the market and try to find tenants or users. Future site plans would come back, typical with the PUD process. There is a chance, because we are out there actively marketing the site, that when we come back with the application itself, we could have some site plans that we would be ready to present for users that we're pretty far along in discussions with. And with that, we are all here. We have all of our consultants as well as representatives from the applicant here for questions or comments. But thank you so much for your time tonight.
Just a quick question at a high level. Which of those site plans do you feel you're leaning towards at this point, given interest in the property? Because, I mean, one is definitely adding another dealership, which is, you know, all within the allowable uses, but that's a pretty different use than what's in that same area on the other plan.
I'll be honest, today is December 2nd. It may be a different answer than it is on December 3rd, so I'm not sure if we could say which one today. We are very actively out there trying to, you know, it's to no one's benefit to have it sit vacant for long. About half of the infrastructure costs are going to be spent up front, we hope, next year. So we're very active in the market trying to find users, and so if we knew which one we were leaning towards, we would have taken one of the slides out, but I think we're still working on that.
Okay. And then I have a question related to your narrative on the project. You identified that you'll be potentially looking at financial support because of extraordinary costs. What exactly does that mean?
So
at this point?
Yeah. So we're in preliminary discussions. We have a consultant and are actively, as recent as today, is pulling together the application. So we're in very early talks with staff about that. But we would be looking at, we're within a TIF district. There's a lot of TIF eligible costs that we would be incurring around site prep, environmental on the site, other public improvements that we would be providing, but we're very early in that process.
And to the rough order of magnitude, what kind of dollars are we talking about?
Ballpark, call it $3.5 million. It's, I believe, roughly less than 20% of the overall.
Okay.
Great. Other questions?
Other questions? From anybody?
Yeah, I've got a couple questions. I see, and this is obviously preliminary, right? It's conceptual, and you're trying to get as many, it looks like as many drive-throughs as possible on the site. I mean, how many do you have conceptually on there? I didn't count them, but...
Yeah, let me pull that really quickly.
5.
Yeah, I believe it's around 7 or 8. Some of those, like I said, we may come back initially with if we have, the users locked in. Otherwise, we'd just be looking for the upfront permission so we can find those users and then come back with the details at that later date.
And, and I understand the whole, I'm an architect myself, and I know that, in today's market, drive-throughs are, they're the development and they're the popular archetype. My concern is right now is that this is very, auto-driven, and I get it, you have the car dealerships next door, but it would be nice if you've got great opportunities for design for the site, whether it's pedestrian, creating, I think there's a hotel that you have planned in one. Is there a hotel?
That's one of the uses that we have listed as a possibility.
Just something to think about conceptually, or, maybe you have this really rigid retention pond, maybe create something nice, walking paths or, areas that people who are, staying at the hotel, they can walk to one of these restaurants that you have and, kind of cohesively bring this site together. Because right now it's just, how many parking spaces can get on there, how many, drive-throughs, and how many cars can I fit in the drive-throughs. It's just very rigid, and it's very, and I get it, it's part of the process. But, I would look at it from a bigger picture and kind of beautify this thing with landscaping, walking paths, and, bring the site together, from a pedestrian standpoint. And, if it means bringing in, that retention pond, a lake or something where you have opportunities for these restaurants to be on the lake. And, so I think there are some great opportunities that are kind of missed in this plan. So it's just my initial observation.
No, I appreciate that feedback. Staff actually has said kind of similar comments, and we're still working through those and opportunities to kind of make it a little bit more pedestrian friendly. So we appreciate that.
I would just add that there was a comment, I think, in the staff report, and just in general, it looks to me that the individual sites are overparked right now, and I would say that I wouldn't be interested in having you put in any additional spaces that aren't required by zoning unless there's a particular user that can provide data that they can support why they need more than what the zoning requires, which I think would add to potentially more green space, give more flexibility to add pedestrian ways, either along the lots, along the east-west driveway in the concept plan, around the pond. I mean, it looks like there's plenty of space between the pond edge or high water line and either the south property line or adjacent pavement on a lot. Realize you haven't done all final grading, so there's grading transitions once you get above high water line. There's a number of things like that happen. I understand that that's further detail, but it just seems, especially given the easements that are wrapped around the property, especially on the south where you have 30 and 20-foot sanitary easements, I'm pretty sure you don't get to dramatically change the grade on those. I'm pretty sure Public Works doesn't care for that, but I would allow them to comment on that. But those, to me, would be places where using the opportunity to have a path. I'm indifferent as it relates to whether the ponds are wet or dry. I think that both can work very well, understanding that there's potentially a site balance that would need to address, digging it deep enough to have a pond that functions well, requires potentially a lot of excavation. And then what do you do with that soil? Kind of a thing if you don't have a place to take it other than hauling it off, and then that becomes a cost, whether it's a TIF cost or if it isn't a TIF cost, it's your cost, and those aren't the kind of things that are helpful to people's budgets. So I get that. But I think that the open space is a large enough piece in the back, and not being able to take advantage of that, or Candidly, you have people to the south that there's a sidewalk that runs up Couts, and that they would be able to link in and maybe walk around a path that goes around there, or link to connect via pedestrian path systems to any of the retail users that you ultimately sell to. I mean, I think that there's opportunities there that would be nice to explore, realizing that that's not exactly the plan that you have today, but I think you have enough land to make that happen, honestly.
Glad we have Spaceco here to hear this feedback, so thank you.
Yeah. Can I ask a procedure question, Mr. Chair? Are they going to do a presentation or no? Or are we just diving in with our comments?
They've done it.
We kept it very brief for concept plan.
It? Okay.
They're civil engineer, and so now we're just
Okay, great. Okay.
launching.
I didn't want to over.
No, that's okay.
Thank you.
I would not be in favor of more than 2 monument signs, which are allowed via our zoning, down at each signalized intersection. I think would be the most logical. Couts in Maine and Pheasant Run Drive, I think it's called. I don't personally see the need for 4, understanding that each lot has frontage and they'll have their own sign, plus you have ball signs that are allowed in our ordinance. So I would not be in favor of additional monument signs for the project. And I was just curious, there was a comment about public art, and I think that thinking about where those are, thinking about how a pedestrian interacts with it, I don't know what scale you're talking about. Is it something that's appreciated at a pedestrian scale, at a vehicular scale, like when you drive by it, kind of thing? I'm not sure what you're talking about, but I think that thinking through how pedestrians interact, where they drive, or where they walk, and what kind of art you're looking at, it'd be nice to have a sense of maybe a few examples if you come back, to just give us a flavor of what that is and where that would be integrated, realizing you weren't trying to integrate all that stuff right now. But there was a mention of it in the narrative. And I would say that the plant list would be nice to be expanded to include perennials and grasses. Wasn't anything wrong with the woody plants that were in there, other than I think that there could be more. And I think that's one of the things that would be part of your final detail plans for each lot anyways, as you do foundation plantings, et cetera. But I would think that some perennials would be helpful to that. As an example of this whole pedestrian conversation, now I'm just referring to what was in our package, the 3639 plan. There's not a lot of pedestrian systems, so we've talked about that. There's also on lot 2, which is a multi-tenant user, 14,000 square feet, 140 parking spaces in that one plan. If that's a lot that moves forward with that direction, over half the parking is behind the building, but there doesn't seem to be represented any logical way to get to the front of the building from a pedestrian walking, and they also have to cross what's shown as a drive-through aisle. So I would think that making sure that those people can safely cross at a place that makes sense would be helpful to bring patrons to the front of the building. I'm assuming they're not going to have double entries on the front and back. I'd be surprised. And I think that the parking study will be helpful. You have KLOA, you have Spaceco, civil engineer. I think that that'll be helpful to understand is there off-site improvements needed because of the additional traffic that will be generated for the project, especially on the west side, where it's a relatively short distance between the full access place and the signalized intersection at Couts and Main Street. So I'd be very interested in seeing that parking. Others, please.
I looked at it through the eyes of your request for a PUD down the road, right? And I looked at some of your previous projects, and they offer a lot of interesting, attractive attractive design elements. And so, should you move forward, I look forward to seeing those offerings applied. And that would check a box for appropriateness of a PUD. I also look forward to your project meeting the public interest finding of a PUD. I know you kind of tossed out some ideas. You know, I don't know if one sculpture will make that, but also in the preliminary rendering, I echo what Mr. Chair said, that I don't see any pedestrian connectivity, and as staff recommended, starting with the public sidewalk connection to the existing sidewalk. I mean, we need to have, you know, some, it is, I know you said pretty rough, but we have to have that. And as for the site plan, I don't think you mentioned it, Peter, yet, but I agree that the internal crossroad that staff mentioned, it needs to move north, or a frontage road, which probably isn't as attractive, to have access into the site. Perhaps it would come in, yeah, I don't know how you do it, but staff recommended perhaps having that move north and continue on the, do you know what I'm talking about? Yeah, it probably cuts the gas station in half. That would be, as opposed to making everybody loop around. Staff made notes that the people will shortcut, and they will, and perhaps if we had a safe pass-through for them, that would, in a future design. I, too, see a lot of drive-ins, and I understand the need to market that. And I also see, with dismay, a car wash. I'm not sure we need a car wash, if there could be a better use for that. But I understand you're still marketing it, and you want to get kind of a high-level approval. But I think it's important, though, to move that road to connect directly with Desert Road Drive.
It's definitely something we're studying in response to staff's comments. Okay. So thank you.
Did you say that with the PUD you were looking to get some level of preliminary approvals for drive-throughs? Potentially.
So I know from our initial conversation, we would like to get a certain number approved, knowing that they would have to come back once we had the final site plans and the users. But that it would be one of the kind of approvals that we would like baked into the PUD. And potentially when we come back with the formal application, if we have some of those users and site plans kind of locked in, we would want those kind of baked into the preliminary approvals. Again, hoping that we're ready to begin construction as early as, we say Q1 of next year. We think that we've heard that may be a little aggressive, but we're ready to move pretty quickly. And having those users locked in with, and kind of fully baked is critical to that from a financing standpoint.
I get the request or the logic behind it. I just think it's important to note that we do require special use for drive-through facilities, and the intention is for that to take each facility into account and how it relates and interacts with every other user and development in this center. I would personally find it difficult to vote on a preliminary approval of this many drive-throughs or even a portion thereof without seeing how things play out. I know there's a Starbucks down the road, but I always use it. A Starbucks is significantly different in demand and in traffic than like a tropical smoothie or a Smoothie King. So, from what's best for the city, I think, is that they each have to come through and get their special use. That's just from my perspective. I think, we as commissioners need to take into account how each lot interacts. It's a lot of drive-throughs.
Can we even do that?
Just to be honest, I think, without trying to be too rude to some of our neighbors to the east, but this is the gateway to St. Charles. I think it does need, if there is this many drive-throughs, there does need to be a higher standard in architecture as people are coming into our community. The dealerships just to the east have done a good job for modern dealerships, but I don't want to be like some of our neighboring communities with all the drive-throughs or rather unappealing shopping centers. You know, St. Charles is different, and that's just from my position. You know, this does need to be, you know, maybe some architectural standards and enhanced features on each of these buildings, so there is some uniform. So it's not just a haphazard of what's going on with their national branding.
Hey, Ellen, a quick question. Independent of whether the PUD is used or not used, let's say the PUD is used when they come forward for the preliminary plan approval. If you will, if they don't have the users and are approving, if you will, actual plans, right? But they're asking for drive-in, you know, drive-through facilities to be part of the PUD. It would still, even if they didn't have those as part of the preliminary plan submittal, they would still be required to come in with each one of those, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yes, that's correct. The PUD approval itself could bake in a certain number of drive-throughs allowed on the property in general, but then there would need to be a PUD preliminary plan approved for each individual site once there's a user solidified and finalized for each individual lot. So the Plan Commission would be seeing a site plan and architectural plans, landscape plans for each individual lot as the users are finalized, but the entitlement for the drive-through itself would already be pre-approved.
Right. Okay. So I don't know if that makes any difference to you from your perspective, but I do think it's going to allow us and each one of those users to be reviewed again, even if they are granted, if you will, as part of their preliminary approval, 5 for drive-throughs. And then if they want to come in and ask for more, each one of those plans would be reviewed. They would just have to ask for them versus any of that. But I had a question that along the line of this, and Zach, you reminded me, related to I know that a lot of individual users, especially retail users, have looks, for the lack of a better description, right, that they want to have. But then they also have a series of looks, many of them, not all, but a series of them, right, that they can, hey, we'll give you more of this look, more of that look. It's still Casey's, it's still, you know, whomever, right? And so I think that that's part of being able to kind of pick and choose from the architecture, right? And not necessarily turn this into a full-blown architectural set of standards for the project. The other part that I thought was interesting, and I thought that you started to do it, which was, and this is again reminding me that the landscape plans that were prepared initially show a pretty continuous planting zone all the way across Main Street, and I can't remember if it comes down Couts or not, but certainly all along Main Street, which is ends up being a little bit more, honestly, I think, than our standard ordinance requires, as far as buffering parking areas and, you know, and things like that. Are you guys committed to doing that? Because, I mean, I thought that was a very positive thing, honestly. And most people are like, well, you know, we'll do what's required. And that's like, for our ordinance, I think for this zoning district, it's like 50-60% of the parking has to be buffered. But that look along Main Street specifically was almost 100% of the frontage.
Yeah, I mean, it's what we're showing currently. Of course, the site plan is all going to move around a little as we're incorporating what we hear tonight, what we've heard from staff, and what we'll hear next Monday. But if that's something that you see as a positive, we'll definitely take note of that. And to the extent possible, as we, you know, incorporate all the feedback we're receiving, you know, we'll note that. I think to the point about the PUD and what's getting approved now versus later, I actually think that, to your point, I'm glad you pulled in staff. I was going to. Otherwise, we're not trying to get these, you know, all pre-baked without the level of detail or, you know, the look that you would usually get. I think just getting the kind of pre-approval allows us to kind of look at this site cohesively and kind of set those expectations as we're out in the market. And, you know, if we have 9 drive-through users and we only have 7 or 8 approved, we know that we, need to look for a different user, or we need to come back and make the case for it. It allows us to look at the site holistically when it comes to signage, which we will look into and know that, if we need more signage, we need to explain it in more detail than we have to date. We can landscape it more cohesively with a plan, and then, like I said, developing this, 12 times, coming in 12 different times for 12 different lots, to us just didn't really make sense given kind of the opportunity that a site of this size at this location of such prominence warrants, in our opinion.
And I would add to that I think if you were to create some design guidelines, not only for the landscaping, but for the architecture, whether it's the trash enclosures or signage or what have you, that are more consistent, so you don't have all these different colors and materials going on, where there's a cohesiveness throughout the site. Along with there needs to be a big idea, I think, that and you have to come up with this big because I see it as it's kind of top heavy on Main Street, and then in the back you lose it with this big lake. I mean, right now it's portrayed as a big lake, but it there's it doesn't seem that inviting to me. So if you were to, you have a great opportunity here to design something nice with the monument signs, the entrances. You talked about the entrance to St. Charles, and I think if you have great architecture and consistency in the architecture and materials, I think you can present a great product that retailers are going to want to come to. So.
Yeah.
I would just also offer the east-west driveway. I mean, there's a conflict/resolution at the east end, depending on who your final user is. Is it the auto dealership, or is it a gas station, or whatever that is, whatever you ultimately choose, and whoever wants to buy the corner in the hard corner, I get that. But one of the things I think is at the far west end, there's a pretty, not a usable lot area, but there's a pretty wide area that ends up, again, at this level, doesn't appear to be used for anything. Stormwater management, nothing. It looks like the stormwater management is more central to east, and that long, narrow area. It almost would seem like there would be an opportunity to get the driveway. I realize it wants to line up with the Portillo's, the back of Portillo's driveway, for all the reasons that traffic people like that. And that's fine. But I also think that the driveway could swing to the south and then come back and give the driveway more movement instead of kind of long, little bend, and then long, straight. I think that those are the kind of things that add character, encourage to a minor amount, to a minor position, a slower speed, right? Curving streets tend to provide a sense of being a little slower. And I think that given the amount of traffic that will be generated, and we'll see all the study for that, I think that people moving at a slower rate would make sense. I'd hate to see you end up, and you may need to, but who knows, like having to have speed tables or speed bumps and stuff like that, because people are just driving too fast, and you're ending up, because of all of these driveways connecting back, you're ending up with accidents. I'm realizing it's private property, this isn't a right-of-way, but still, those are the kind of things that don't bode well for people coming there, as well as the users and everybody involved. So I think there's some chances to do that, and I don't know how close you guys are on calculating the volume. It looked like there was 5 feet of bounce for what was shown right now, but I don't know how much play is in that, because I realize,
Are you talking here? Where are you talking?
No, in the pond. In the pond.
Oh, in the pond. Okay.
The pond has 5 feet of bounce in it right now.
Yeah.
But I think that, making some changes to the driveway and giving it a little more interesting character, you'd end up adding some land to the north side of it, which might be useful from a user or users, at least down at the east end, where you're looking at maybe starting the project. but, you know, maybe the bounce moves to 6 feet. I don't think that's prohibited in our ordinance, but if there was a way to think through that, I realize you have to have a release rate and all of these detailed calculations. But I think that might be something to consider, understanding you have to detain so much volume, you know, so.
And I hear you on your landscaping, but I also think it's imperative that in there we have a pedestrian way.
Yeah, that was a comment. So we
yeah.
extend that down all the way to the light, as well as from Couts,
right,
from the corner here at the warehouse up.
Right.
I think it's important not just even talk about the public walk, you know, on the frontages. There needs to be connections from the public walk into each site, as well as, you know, more internal circulation. So I would anticipate connections to each building from the public walk, at least along Main Street. That way people can walk.
And not worry about the traffic.
I mean, you see that along Randall Road here in town, just south of Main Street. The retail users on the south side, there's a pedestrian path system that runs down to Oak Street, and you know, and each one of those retail users, their sidewalk comes out to meet that.
And it's easier done here.
So.
Right, without parking lots in front. I like that you don't have the parking lots in front. That will be more visually and practical. You know, to have your, as Zach said, your connectivity between them.
If I may talk about some of the site circulation on the east side, so, you know, whether it's the dealership or the gas station and how it relates to the car wash, that's going to be some tough site circulation. I'm just looking at, you know, what appears to be a right in, right out. It's pretty quick turns for these roads. You know, whether you're turning right and whipping right into the car wash in the design with the gas station, and then people are either, when they get out of the tunnel, they're either going to go right and they're conflicting with that traffic, or they're going to be zipping through the neighboring property. And then even with the car dealership, there still is some interesting site circulation and potential vehicle conflicts. I know we're not doing a full design on that, but I really think that the site circulation between those two users, you know, the car wash and whatever goes to the east, and how that relates needs to be looked at. You know, my opinions on a car wash are, you know, typically I'm not for it, but it's a permitted use. So that being said, you know, I recognize there's a right to build one on the site, but I do think that the configuration and how it relates, if this is a user that's a large user like a JetBrite, for example, on a busy day, they'll fill all those lanes and some. So, you know, how does that interact? How does that create conflicts with the neighboring, you know, properties? So that use in itself, maybe it has a better location elsewhere on the plan just to help soften that right in, right out, you know, next to the gas station or car dealership, because I can that both being high traffic, you know, draws. And I know, yes, it has access at the light to the east, but if you provide an entrance, people pull in anywhere they can, especially if they're not from town. So just some things to consider with conflicts between those two users on how they interact.
Peter, from a procedural, when is the traffic study done in this process? Is it required? Is it at the final? From the preliminary?
For the preliminary submittal, they would be required to do a traffic study. Yes.
But would you have to modify that based on the final PDU? Like if you approved a certain amount of drive-through components, would you have to modify that?
I think that would be potentially a staff question, or it would be a question to the city's outside consultant that reviews the traffic study submitted by their consultant, which is KLOA. But that would be that kind of a question for them to answer. I don't know that staff would want to answer that. I think they would defer to our outside consultant.
Well, I think what Gary's asking too is let's say you have one of these users that is more unique and higher demand. Would the study be redone with that drive-through user, or does it require simply just maybe a traffic memo or update, a brief update, not a full study.
Yeah, I think for the traffic study that would need to be submitted with the PUD submittal, which would be the next step in the process, we'd get a traffic study and there would need to be assumptions made for the users of each lot, and they would assume certain uses and certain demand from those uses, and then if it ends up being that a user comes in like an amusement park that has, way higher parking demand, then we would when we're reviewing plans for that particular lot, we would in that case say, okay, we need a traffic study or the traffic study for the development revised because of this higher intensity user.
So I think that is it going to be a dealership, presumably by the time you get to the preliminary plan submittal and all the engineering and all the other documents that are required, they might make a decision on, is it going to be the gas station, hotel stuff at the east end, or is it a dealership? I bet they'd want to know before they come. But if not, then if it ends up one and it becomes the other, then it would be staff's decision to ask for an update.
And a car wash also has to have a special use, in addition to the drive-throughs, right, Ellen? The car wash?
We look at car washes as requiring a special use for the drive-through part of a car wash. So car wash is permitted, drive-through is special use.
Okay.
Thanks for the clarification.
Mm-hmm. And we started that traffic study. It was being revised as recently as today. It also has to go to IDOT for review, which is a pretty lengthy process. And of course, as plans are changed as we are going through this process, we'll need to update it.
Would you be pursuing both right-in, right-outs off of Main Street?
Yeah, that is currently the plan, assuming IDOT approves it.
Okay. Well, that's definitely IDOT.
If I may,
you guys will definitely want to weigh in on that.
If I may touch on something that Jeff mentioned regarding materials, especially with signs and trash enclosures. Again, I understand national branding, things like that. Where possible, though, whether it's foundations of individual signs for freestanding signs, that's a fantastic, step forward. I think where if there's, it doesn't have to be uniform, but complementary materials, meaning so you have a selective palette that's approved, or that would be appreciative. So meaning, you as tenants, okay, if you're doing masonry around a freestanding sign, you can pick from one of these three stone types. That way it's just, it's cohesive, it's going to blend, it's going to tie into everything. That's something that I would be, outside of, I'm not saying the whole buildings and everything have to match, but cohesive.
Yeah, and you guys have done that in previous projects.
I was going to thank you for doing your homework
right.
and for the kind words. So, yeah.
Standalone, but it also blends in with, so you guys,
Is there any deviations that you can share with us related to why you want to do a PUD beyond what's in the staff report?
Not beyond what's in the staff report, other than the two items that I mentioned that are somewhat non-zoning, but very, very important, which is, well, I guess 3 items. One is it's going to be a significant investment to get a site of this size kind of ready, with most of it up front. So we need, in order to attract capital to finance that, we need kind of the certainty that the PUD would give us, that we aren't, coming in for one-off sites. And then the drive-throughs are quite critical, knowing that we can go out and attract those users. I would say those are the main items. And to the point of the public benefits, I always, across all municipalities, struggle with and look for direction from local stakeholders and decision makers like yourselves. If you have ideas, public art was one that we typically is well received and we've done before. If you have thoughts about what that public art should look like or other public benefits, better than anyone what would be kind of well received. So we're open to that feedback tonight as well.
Well, I think you've received certainly some of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Pedestrian friendliness. And that component being something that would honestly would set it apart from other retail centers. A lot of the existing retail centers, just were done in St. Charles a while ago, and that wasn't apparently as high of priority as we make of it today, which is good from my perspective. So I think being able to do that and provide that pedestrian opportunity, integration of art, whether it's along the walkways, along the driveways, in the middle of your pond, I mean,
Yeah.
I think those are all pretty interesting pieces. Again, it depends on
Yeah.
what
Something
those
you can
art
look
pieces
at.
are.
Yeah.
I mean, the scale is super important because,
Yep.
especially, anything near a pond or whatever, the scale is really big, and so small pieces, 8-10 feet, get lost, honestly. I mean, if you're going to put something out by that pond, you better have something 20-plus feet if it's going to really hold its own
Yeah.
in the space.
Or have it in a space, because public interest is a big part of the PC, is one of those boxes you have to check. And like you're saying, make it a place of interest, maybe, and so a place where people, after they've conducted their business, will walk to or take it in that way. Yeah, so. Yeah.
I have a question for staff. With this being adjacent to the airport, is this portion of the property subject to some of the same restrictions that the car dealerships to the east were, with the uses and some other like height and lighting restrictions?
I believe so, in terms of the residential use, that it can't have residential use. That's all that I'm aware of, specific to this site.
Yeah, I think more of the restrictions from DuPage Airport Authority were for the warehouse portion because of current runways and glide paths, not only in use, but in heights and different things like that. There was much more restriction, and I think it was actually part of their submittal. They showed where DuPage Airport Authority had the requirement for glide path protection and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Which then sets tones for heights and stuff, which is why it's all warehousing, and so everything falls below that. So.
And the residential piece was big, which we don't have to worry about here.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right. Right. No big deal. Okay. All right. Anything else? No? All right. Is there anyone from the public? We do have a piece related to this project.
Yeah.
Not a general comment, but related to this piece. We do allow public comment at this point. No? No? Team, you guys? No? You guys are saving it for later? All right.
We're here listening, so, yeah.
Checking.
It's best to hear
a lot of
firsthand.
notes over there. All right. It's all right. I like it.
There is so much.
All right. All right. Well, any final comments we want to give to them? 'Cause I think that'll conclude our conversation on this piece today. Any final comments? Yes, Bruce.
I would just ask, there were a couple of comments from commissioners about the east-west road and its eastern terminus with Pheasant Run Drive, and maybe the applicants could come up and address that or give us any thoughts they have about how that particular issue might be resolved.
Yeah, it's definitely something that we're actively studying, and so we need a little bit more time, but definitely heard the comment, and we'll be ready to, have those answers. And the one consultant not here tonight is KLOA, but they will get all of your feedback as well. So I'm glad you're familiar with them.
Yep. All right. Any final comments from anybody on this topic? We don't have any public comments, so that's all fine.
Yep.
Very good.
We really appreciate the feedback. I've heard it. And
All right.
Sorry, is there public,
I have a comment, but
Oh, we have a couple of public comment period.
oh, okay.
but not on
Because
that.
it's general,
Okay.
general, not specific to this topic.
Great.
No problem. All right.
Great.
Thank you very much. Hopefully you guys can come back and your team can come back. I look forward to seeing how you've integrated a lot of those comments, understanding you're also going to go get some input on the 8th from our elected officials.
That's the goal. Thank you
All
so
right.
much.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, that concludes item 5. Item 6 is public comment. General, please. If you could introduce yourself, name and address for our court reporter.
My name is Jill Aducci. I live on the east side of St. Charles, 1105 West Francis Circle. right across from East High School. And although my comments aren't directly in relation to this, I want to say thank you for all the work you're doing here. It's fabulous, and I would be impacted by the Pheasant Run stuff, so that was very interesting. And I guess want to say I hope there's not another car wash in another dealership. Okay. Good evening, Commissioners, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. Again, my name is Sheila Ducci, and I reside on the east side of St. Charles for over 20 years. I'm here today because I recently saw two very large-scale, in-your-face murals go up on the east side of town on the new buildings near Jewel Osco. Immediately upon seeing them, I took my civic action by emailing my alderperson and asking what guidelines our city currently has in place for murals on commercial buildings. I was informed that there are no specific mural design guidelines at all. I replied that this was something we need to address promptly, especially as our town grows and we work to preserve a cohesive visual identity and maintain the charm and character of St. Charles. Yesterday I learned, just yesterday, that this commission worked out some mural guidelines for the historic district. I'm here today to respectfully request that we look at these guidelines, expand these guidelines to apply to the entire city, not solely the historic corridor. I believe citywide standards would benefit St. Charles for many reasons. One, it would preserve our visual consistency and community character that you guys all talked about tonight that's important to us. Two, preventing unintended aesthetic impacts from oversized or inappropriate designs. Provide clarity for property owners and developers up front. Ensuring fairness so all building owners follow the same rules, and maintaining a balance between artistic expression and community standards, protecting property values and supporting thoughtful, intentional growth, and avoiding community disputes that occur when public-facing artwork is installed without approval or oversight. I would also like to request clarification on the approval process for the existing murals installed by the Greco Company. My understanding is that these murals were not included in the original development plans that were submitted for approval. If that is the case, I would like to know who authorized or permitted their installation afterward. Furthermore, if these murals were installed without proper approval or outside scope of previously approved plans, I would like to ask whether the city can require their removal before final inspection and final sign-off on these buildings. It seems reasonable that an unapproved visual alteration of this magnitude should be corrected prior to the issuance of final occupancy or certification. Because if this situation sets a precedent that any building owner may install any design of any visual scale with no review or approval, we risk losing that aesthetic cohesion that Zach talked about and thoughtful planning that has long defined our St. Charles. We do have a certain look. We do have a gateway into our town on the east side. Lastly, I want to express that I'm not simply raising a concern. I am here as a very concerned community member on the east side, and I'm willing to assist this commission in any way possible if you need my hands, my brain, my gifts to work on this, creating a citywide mural guideline that is fair, consistent, and enforceable, similar to the standards of other municipalities. And we need to require these of builders and property owners. That's all I had to say. I was very impressed with your thoughtfulness and questions to this group tonight, and I just implore you to take a look at the overall plan. If we have no guidelines in place, it is a big miss. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ellen, is this something that staff can look into a little bit more or provide some feedback in the next meeting or two, whether there's anything in our ordinance that works with that, or specifically her question about Greco's project. I mean, since elevations were approved for that project as a PUD, and if there weren't murals, then I think that's
Isn't a mural considered signage or no?
So a mural is only considered signage if there's text, like specifically advertising the business or, you know. So in this case, these murals are not considered signage. Murals are not regulated in our zoning ordinance. It's looked at as like painting of a building, which is not regulated, but I definitely hear the gray area in the fact that these buildings were approved as part of a PUD with building elevations approved. So, yeah, it's something that we'll need to discuss internally.
Sure. Did they have graphics on the elevations when they submitted for plan?
No.
No, there was I don't remember any,
I would have,
full-scale mural.
Yeah, I don't know if they added,
they
added it in.
They had signage placement, on the buildings, but not
the pickleball facility had some murals shown on their approved elevations, but the ones that have gone up were not shown.
Right. Okay.
I would equate it to if we don't regulate painting, let's say we approve an elevation for a building and then they come back and just paint it a different, paint it all a different color. It's, we had an approved elevation, so we need to stand by that. That's why they went through the process. That's just why I'm agreeing, that I think that they should abide by the approved elevation, because painting mural, it differs from what we saw.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, there were elevations, there were illustrative renderings they provided of their project, which showed the character of their buildings, where they were using masonry, where they were, where the window systems were going to be, et cetera. And if there wasn't, even if it wasn't drawn, if there wasn't specific notes about large-scale murals, then to me, I'll defer to staff, but that seems like a good question to figure out.
I actually agree with you, and appreciate you bringing that up. And I drove by there and I saw that. I'm like, wow, it's a lot larger than and it's not like your Portillo's, small graphics that they have, but it's very large and it's very telling. So. Right.
Yeah.
And there's two of them, correct?
Yeah.
Correct. Is it common for other? What do our neighbors do? Do they govern murals in any way, or is it common for other municipalities?
I think it's town by town. I don't know specifically any communities that have specific guidelines for murals, but it's definitely possible they exist. I just don't know about them. We'd have to do some research.
Go to the North Shore. All control.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. All right. Okay. Well, staff will work on that. Thank you for bringing this up to us. Any additional business from our plan commission members or staff? Nothing?
Next meeting date?
Meeting is going to be the 16th, correct?
We'll cancel that meeting.
That's canceled.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Merry Christmas.
Fair enough. All right. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
All right. Plan commission adjourned 7:57, 7:58. Thank you. Thanks everybody for coming.